Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Independent Schools Equity and Access Conference and College Fair. My name is Vita Robinson, and I'm the upper school principal at Westtown School. And years ago, I also worked in college admissions, and I was a dean of college counseling. I really love that this is an opportunity to talk about equity and access. I think about my own journey to college, and it started in a church in South Bend, Indiana, where someone who was a member of the congregation said, "Have you ever heard about this school named Colby College? I'm going to recommend you for a scholarship." I had never been to Maine, but I got on a plane, I met amazing people, and that woman provided equity and access to me. She told me about a college experience, and it was an amazing experience for 4 years, and I treasure it. I'm thinking about today and looking at our panelists who are all admissions officers or financial aid officers, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, give a brief bio about the location of their college, and also to talk about their journey into this profession, which we all love. And many of you are probably thinking, these are these people who make really difficult decisions, and they probably just go, I'm going to admit this student, I'm not going to admit that student. It's much deeper than that. And I would love for them to talk about it. So we will start with Nicholas.
Good morning, and thank you, Ms. Robinson. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I know Saturday mornings are nobody's, I think, ideal time to get online, especially over the last 18 months. We've got plenty of screen time, but I think it's so great that you all are here, and it's so great to see everyone here this morning. My name is Nick Orban, and I'm from the Office of Enrollment Management at the University of Maryland, College Park. Enrollment management means a lot of different things at a lot of schools. My background is primarily in college admissions. Part of my job is, I think like Ms. Robinson said, I read applications, make admission decisions, and try to tell students why Maryland is a great place to go to college and spend the next 4 years of your educational journey. University of Maryland College Park is the flagship university for higher education in Maryland. Broadly speaking, that means that we're the largest school in the state with about 30,000 total undergraduate students, with an additional 10,000 graduate students. It also means that we're sort of the original or oldest public university in the state. We were founded in 1856 as the Maryland Agricultural College, which was a school designed to research farming and agricultural practices to help serve citizens of the state of Maryland, but more broadly, citizens of the United States and the world. And while the university has adapted a lot in the last 160 years, to offer 90 plus majors, 80 plus minors in 12 different schools and colleges, that core mission of research and service still rings true in everything we do in all of the different communities that we're a part of. We're located just outside of Washington, D.C., so we're about 5 miles from the border with Washington, D.C., about 10 miles from the U.S. Capitol building. And we have our own stop on D.C. subway, D.C. Metro. So from our metro station, it's about a 20-minute ride into the heart of the city. And that really gives us sort of the best of two different worlds, because we have this great major global metropolitan city right down the road that our students can take advantage of when anything looks like internships or non-academic pieces that I could go on and on about. But we also have this traditional college campus, which you can kind of see behind me in this virtual background, that's very much walking friendly, and where your residential college campus. So getting the best of those two different worlds is a pretty unique experience for our students. In terms of sort of the second part of Ms. Robinson's sort of prompt, sort of how did we get here and how did we become sort of admission officers or financial aid officers? I think we all joke that nobody goes to college dreaming or planning to be a college admissions officer or working in at a college financial aid office. For me, my background kind of started as a student tour guide at the University of Maryland. So I did my bachelor's and master's degree at Maryland as well. And as an undergraduate, I wanted to become a tour guide because I really wanted to sort of open that access and show students like how great Maryland was and give my student experience and hope to convince some of my high school students where I was in the same position a few years before to come to Maryland and have a great college experience. And through that, I was able to get mentoring and develop relationships with full-time staff members in the admissions office. I started working in the admission office shortly after graduation, and now 9 years later, I'm still here, still working in the admissions office at Maryland, and work with great people all across our campus and in our office. So to emphasize Ms. Robinson's point, there are real people who are here to be resources for you and be passionate about your college going process. So with that, I'll hand it back.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from Vero Duffins.
All right, thank you, Ms. Robinson, and thank you, everyone, for being here with us. I have to disagree with my friend Nick on one thing. Saturday morning in November, there's no better, more fun place to be, guys, than to be right here in front of the computer talking about colleges. And also, I dreamt of being in admissions and financial aid since now. I'm kidding. Nick is absolutely correct. Nobody dreams about doing this until they actually get pretty close to it. And probably what everybody you're going to talk to in the next day has in common is that at some point in time while we were in college or even before, we thought, you know what, we could actually impart some help and wisdom onto the next generations of what we do. And so we're excited. We also, I think all of us enjoy being and working with students, because even as we grow a little older every day, our students are always the same age. And it's a wonderful thing just to see the next generations come in and to see what you guys are doing and how different things are for you going through the search than us. I am the director of financial aid at Swarthmore College, which is about 11 or 12 miles outside of Philadelphia. We are a small private liberal arts college, obviously not very far from Westtown School. We have under 1,700 students. My office, the financial aid office, serves about 900 of those 1,700 students. So we typically aid more than half of our students with financial aid. And I will be brief here, Mrs. Robinson. The thing that led me to this, and some of what I was sort of joking about earlier is actually true, is that I found my way into admissions over 25 years ago, and that's actually where I started. And I started at Elizabethtown College outside of Harrisburg in Hershey, Pennsylvania. I was there for only about a year, and I went to Franklin and Marshall College in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, also in admissions. I was in admissions for the better part of a decade. I actually met Dr. Ireland when we were both in admissions, and she was at Villanova. The one thing that I found fascinating during the time that I was in admissions and working with young folks to be able to bring them to small private liberal arts colleges in Pennsylvania was the affordability factor and the access and affordability piece. And I was very, very interested in how that worked. There was an opportunity for me to actually move from the admissions office to the financial aid office at Franklin and Marshall. And I did that in 2004. And so I've been in financial aid for a little over 17 years. I now get to work with both prospective students, which I've always enjoyed, but I also work with all of our current students in the work that I do. And everything that I do on my campus, which I'm very thankful for, is all about giving students, all students, greater access and ways of affordability. So I will stop there and pass it off to my friends. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Great. Michael Gunn.
Yes, man, the sentiments are real. My name is Michael Gum. I serve as the senior recruitment manager for the online program at Morehouse College, former assistant director of admissions at Morehouse College. So right now I'm kind of in a hybrid mode of just doing both jobs and absolutely loving it. Like Nick and like Mr. Vero said, it is very true. I got into this because I was a student ambassador who loved the opportunity to really witness new guys. And I say guys because all I've known is Morehouse College, as that's the all-male institution for higher learning and considered a historically Black college university. So all I've known is how to recruit young guys into the institution, predominantly African-American males. And to see in this terminology of access, and as we look at opportunities to bring guys in, to know that the demographic of young African-American males overall is one might argue the hardest demographic to recruit, let alone to really gel a time and to pour into these guys' lives so that they could be of greatness is the best task that I ever had. With that, I've been in the realm for about 10 years into it. And I started off as a student ambassador as well, similar to Nick, giving tours on the campus. And so with that, what brought me to Morehouse was very simple. My older brother was a graduate of the class of 2004, later found himself going to Princeton and getting his doctorate at Emory University. And while I was a high school student, I got a chance to witness, Jay go through Morehouse. And so it was the only school I applied to. I don't encourage that. I definitely want you to have options, but it was the only school I applied to and was accepted into. And with that, Morehouse is an amazing school. It's been ranked as a top feeder school for graduate schools, known as America's hottest college for men. Right now, we're located in the beautiful city of Atlanta. A lot of rising stars, a lot of leaders, young entrepreneurs find themselves getting into the heart of the city, and Morehouse sits right in that pocket. With that opportunity, you're a part of the AUC, also known as Atlanta University Center. Atlanta University Consortium comprises of Morehouse College, Spelman College, Clark Atlanta University, Morris Brown College, and so on. And what's beautiful about that is you have this opportunity to cross-register, so you could be the only guy in an all-girl class at Spelman. I'll say it again, you'd be the only guy in an all-girl class at Spelman, and vice versa. If you decide to go to Spelman, you could take classes over at Morehouse. We only offer a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science degree. So we don't have any master's programs or doctoral programs. So I tell students you can only do Morehouse once. With that, also, we have amazing programs that are available to you. And because of our class size being 14-to-1 student-teacher ratio, we have a very intimate setting where professors really get a chance to house students and really talk to them about their futures and going out. About 95% of our staff members, faculty members actually have a doctoral degree. And so, you have this direct access to really be able to pigeon-toe and to get to where you want to go. And so I will leave it with that, with just 3 alums that graduated from Morehouse that you probably are familiar with. Martin Luther King Jr., of course, Samuel Jackson, Spike Lee, and there's so many others, and the list does go on. But make Morehouse your home, and I hope that you guys take a look at that. In terms of access, I know all of us are going to share, so that's just a little bit about me. I'm from the South Side of Chicago, lost my mother to cancer at the age of 12, and so I could tell you when it comes to really finding yourself, these institutions that are in front of you are really going to help solidify your opportunities. So I share that, and I leave it to my next colleague, Eric.
Thank you. So Eric Carrera.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I have to agree with everyone on the panel that we all fell into what we do right now because of different experiences, and for many of us was experiences as students. I remember my first year in college. I went to the student employment office, and I said, oh, I want to get my very, very first job ever. How can you help me? And the person at the office said, oh, well, we happen to have a position available at the financial aid office. Would you be interested? I said, sure, I don't know anything about it, but why not? Let's give it a try. It's my very first job. I was eager to learn everything I possibly could. For the first 6 months, I spent the whole time filing. That's all I did for the first 6 months. I said, well, I'm not really getting much out of it, but I have really learned by the alphabet and how to make sure files are in order. But that was a skill I learned, and that was my very first skill, just to be very organized. And then from that, I truly started working, helping other students with simple tasks, just like how to fill out the FAFSA application, what financial aid documentation you and your parents have to have ready when you are about to apply for financial aid. And having that connection with students really helped me fell in love with the profession. I have work in financial aid now for the last 20 years, initially as a work study student, then became a financial aid counselor right after I graduated. Right after I graduated from college, I became a financial aid counselor, became an assistant director, associate director, and now I am the deputy director of student financial aid at the University of Pennsylvania. I fell in love with the profession. I was lucky to find a profession I fell in love early on. I don't see myself doing anything else other than working in financial aid and higher education. I just think it's a field that it's not easy to work in, but it presents us with a lot of challenges. But we are always, as financial aid administrators, looking for ways to help students understand that yes, college could be expensive, but there are a lot of resources out there that every financial aid offers, no matter where you're coming from, whether it's a private institution or public institution. We are always looking for ways to make college more accessible to our students. I know when you're talking with the admissions representatives, you always getting to be exposed to all the different things that college can offer, from education, research, from fun things, from travel, study abroad, a lot of great opportunities. But in the back of everyone's mind is always it's always the question, how am I going to pay for all of this? That's when financial aid comes in. And I think Vara probably could tell you that I agree that we are always looking for ways to support our students. We are a support system. We are here for you. We know the financial aid process could be extremely overwhelming and complicated, and everyone is asking, so why is financial aid asking for all this documentation, all these applications? There's a reason behind that. It's not because we want to make your life difficult. That's not our process, our goal here. But our goal is to create the best financial aid packages of what we can possibly do, and we only going to know that by knowing what your family's financial situation, by requesting all the documentation. So we know not only what's coming in, but also what are your expenses? What are your family expenses? What are circumstances that have impacted your family's finances and your opportunity to go to college? How's COVID impacted you? That's been a big question for everybody. COVID has presented all of us with a lot of challenges, especially our students and families. But it also has presented colleges with the opportunities to be creative and see what else can we do to support our students. So just to tell you a little bit about my institution. University of Pennsylvania is a private Ivy League institution. I've been with Penn for the last 3 years, but most of my financial aid experience is working in the public sector, working for a public school, public institution. I got my bachelor's degree and my master's degree from Rutgers University, which is a very large public institution. Penn is it's a big university. We serve about 11,000 students, undergraduate students, and about 10,000 graduate students, and about 50% of our undergraduate students receive financial aid, our own financial aid, and many of our students receive great financial aid packages. You might go to our website and be scared by what the cost of attendance is to go to the University of Pennsylvania, but a lot of our students graduate without any debt because of all the resources that we have to offer. So don't let a sticker price scare you or say, oh, I can never go to that institution because it's too expensive. There are resources out there. You just have to work for the financial aid offices, and we're here to help you out. Thank you.
Thank you all for sharing your journeys. It's so interesting to see what a work study job or being a tour guide or ambassador can really lead to some amazing opportunities. Now we are going to have our keynote from Dr. T.J. Snowden, who is Director of Admissions and Recruitment at Morehouse College. He's joining us via video.
And I'm your keynote speaker for today's activity. Good morning. I'm Dr. T.J. Snowden, the Director of Admissions and Recruitment at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm your keynote speaker for today's activities. First, a quick thank you to Dr. Marge Ireland and her committee for putting this event together. Additionally, thank you to all the participants taking part in today's event. I apologize that I'm not able to be with you, but I do hope my message leaves with you something to consider as we continue to navigate the concepts of access and equity in college admissions. Now, can I level with y'all? Working in education is hard. Whether you're on one side of the desk or the other, this profession is not for the faint of heart. Now, that's not putting down anyone else's job, but I cannot think of many professions where you enter with thoughts that the work you do will change the world, only to have more days where our actions are challenged by some indomitable force at every turn. Now, let's not forget paltry pay in entry and mid-level positions, expanding caseloads, and antiquated practices that emphasize the business of education over providing quality services and instruction to some of our most vulnerable populations. But we didn't get into this industry to get paid. We were called, chosen, recommended, and some of us even stumbled upon a labor of love that encourages gray hair, joining Peloton bike clubs, and having faith the size of a mustard seed that our students will go on to realize their dreams at an institution that will nurture their intellectual capabilities and pique their social curiosities. And as advocates for our young people, we do this work with the expectation that these institutions will see them for the souls they are, malleable minds from a myriad of backgrounds set to prove Horace Mann's notion that education will improve their lot in life. Now, the past 18 months have done a number on this planet, and all COVID-19 did, aside from making us all cringe at the dinging sound of a computer when someone joins a Teams meeting, is called BS on the societal norms of a country that, even in its best attempts, cannot seem to get over itself. The battle of the haves and have-nots was front and center. These truths were indeed self-evident that while all men, in a figurative sense, might have been created equal to pursue their dreams, the ability to achieve those dreams in a safe and equitable environment were few and far between. Now, you can infuse political unrest, the senseless killings of Black and brown people, and the dismantling of this country's collective history because the writers prefer a revision that does not recognize the sinful nature of its existence. The revolutionary poet Gil Scott-Heron once asked, "Who will survive in America?" You see, he questioned the ideals of freedom built on indigenous backs, a country originally unwanted, seeking validation by a nefarious parent who spent centuries spreading seeds of dominance over others. And the prosperity that was promised was only to be revealed as unattainable. Each moment in history where a people or people have been denied the basic rights to exist and thrive are just bricks in the wall of inequity built to stifle our true power as a nation under God. Access or lack thereof to education and its privileges, while not directly dealing the death blow to our physical existence, was yet another ugly truth that rose to the forefront where our commitment to bridging those gaps were challenged. I believe that one of America's greatest vanity projects, educational rankings, presents obstacles for us as admissions professionals to transform an industry where students' needs are met and normalizing a concept of diversity that is more than just reporting demographic boxes to be checked on an application. Unfortunately, we have been conditioned to believe that rankings ultimately establish superiority over others that in no way properly indicates that offerings below a certain threshold will prepare a student to reach his, her, or their maximum potential. If you're a high school counselor, you manage the expectations of families with varying degrees of knowledge of the admissions and enrollment process, hoping to get a leg up on whatever advantages make their student more marketable. As a standard, you'll provide glowing letters of recommendation and transcripts, but there are those who can supplement your assistance with independent counsel who seeks to specialize in crafting narratives that will improve their chances at being admitted to the school of choice. By no means should we knock the parents, students, or even independent counselors for capitalizing on services meant to achieve those ends. You made that sacrifice, or at a minimum, achieve the level of success that affords you that opportunity. But what about those students on the other end of the spectrum? Those students who rely solely on our counsel, depending on the bridges that you built to bend the ears of your college counterparts to consider their candidacy. Often, you can sprinkle in a few adjectives to signify the historic disenfranchisement of those student populations, multiplied by 10, and what you have is a recipe for burnout even in your best efforts to advocate for those who may not have the knowledge to advocate for themselves. COVID-19 simply exacerbated those requests for you to be all things in all things. Not to be cliche, but the sweat equity needed to support students, regardless of their allocation of resources, is taxing as we race to meet admissions deadlines. It is amazing that the level of creativity that some of our colleagues possess to create memes that speak to how they feel as deadlines pass, many of them translating into a hilarious sigh of relief that underscores our frustration at the system. Now, my colleagues on the college admission side, we have the unenviable task of crisscrossing the country, and many of you the globe, to find qualified candidates who come from academically rigorous backgrounds, with an array of volunteer and leadership activities. Over the course of our careers in admissions, many of us have become adept marketers, savvy public speakers, cunning wordsmiths, and quantitative analysts, all in the name of helping our institutions improve their academic profile. Combine that with historical data from previous classes, testing trends, even though a considerable number of us have gone test optional or have been, and relationship building. We are challenged to make a class diverse in thought, ethnicity, experiences, and buying power. We won't go as far as saying that we have quotas to meet because everyone's office is different. But for many of us, our institutional budgets are tied to class goals that perpetuates the notion that recruitment is simply a sales job. In our hearts, we want to create an experience and ultimately a space where young people can feel that their scholastic and personal pursuits are understood, appreciated, and valued as they seek learning opportunities. Yet it should not be lost that the business of higher education calls for us to maintain a general level of selectivity that drives the demand for a name brand experience despite the rising costs that may negatively impact the ill-informed consumer. 20 plus years ago, I was that ill-informed consumer. I wasn't first gen, but the concept of college seemed more like a way out of a small town and not a way into developing habits that would prepare me not only to afford college, but succeed. The stigma of being a class valedictorian came with a label that I could write my own ticket because I had memorized enough formulas and properly crafted essays beyond the perceived levels of reading, writing, and arithmetic in a Title I public school in a state that is consistently ranked in the lower quadrant of educational attainment and preparedness. Unless you were a top athlete, the top 50 schools weren't coming to Monroe, Louisiana to find you. Yet to be smart and black and poor subjective seemed like the perfect building blocks for a scholarship recipient. So I went on about my senior year with the notion I had done just enough to get out. My guidance counselors were confident that I knew enough to complete applications, and they were still using paper back then, and to apply for financial aid. But since the state-funded scholarships were all the rage, why emphasize pursuing other options when most local kids who went to college prefer to stay within a 150-mile radius? And if you've ever visited Louisiana, north or south, if you wanted to get anywhere, you were going to have to cross the bridge. Now, I'm guessing you're wondering where I'm going with all this. And I'll tell you. As college counseling and admissions professionals, we have the responsibility to create equitable practices and opportunities to help young people reach heights that so many of them only see in TV commercials and Instagram photos. For some of my more seasoned vets, before the internet, many of us could not have imagined these places outside of the 1,000 plus page college admissions books that sold for almost $50 in the local bookstore. And to my surprise, some of them are still in publication. So many students view a college education as a bridge to unlimited possibilities, the same way I did 20 years ago. I don't fault my guidance counselors for having not foreseen the pitfalls that would have impacted my roundabout journey through college, or taking a much extended hiatus to pursuing advanced degrees, and ultimately landing in the position I am today as the Director of Admissions and Recruitment at Morehouse College. But as I consider my role in creating these opportunities for students like me, the bridges I sought to build as an advocate for college education had evolved. The more familiar I became with the nuances of the investment of enrolling in college, I began to appreciate my ability to be a resource and focus less on securing a transaction to meet metrics that will ultimately change at the next recruitment cycle. So how do I build my bridge to an equitable college admissions experience? First, integrity. Now, Morehouse College might sign my checks, but at the end of the day, I want all students to enroll in a great school that is equipped to meet their personal and professional pursuits. The exposure to life-changing relationships and opportunities that a college experience brings should not be relegated to what a student can and cannot afford. As an admissions professional, I stand in my truth, advocating that the distribution of my intricate knowledge of the college admissions process should be something that all students should be privy to. Second, compassion. The first time I denied a student, I literally almost burst into tears because his story was one that I had seen play out in real life. The advice I got from sharing this experience with a colleague was, there will be others. Undoubtedly, there have been, but in our efforts to be selective, are we championing our students to consider alternative college choices if they are not prepared to transition into four-year colleges? Whether it be academically or financially related, an equitable college experience might be packaged as a dream deferred that can be realized through additional planning, i.e. community college, to decrease the strain on student resources. Whether the student begins their choice school as a first-year freshman or a junior with 60 credit hours, The diploma hanging on the wall denotes graduate, and that is the main goal. Third and final, my purpose. My why for working in college admissions is simple. I want a student to walk away from our meeting feel like they gained a friend, and not another business card or photo to collect that they'll eventually throw away when they make their college decision. I won't get them all, but the ones that I can get, know that my advocacy extends well beyond their application and an admissions deposit. Acclaimed African-American writer Ralph Waldo Ellison, author of The Invisible Man, once said, "Education is a matter of building bridges. How are you building yours?" Thank you.
Thank you to Dr. Snowden for his powerful message. We're going to spend the rest of the time we have together examining and exploring a couple of questions. The first one, and any of the panelists can answer the question. Dr. Snowden really talks about students, some families and students looking at educational rankings and also the name brand experience. Please speak to the habits and non-cognitive skills students should employ in their journey to finding the right college for them. And anyone can jump in.
Thank you. I'll jump in if you guys don't mind. First of all, Ms. Robinson, I obviously should have said earlier, along with my colleagues, this is a wonderful program this day. I mean, when you look at the schools that are here for these students today, this is a veritable who's who of some of the greatest institutions across the United States. So kudos to you all for doing it, and particularly my friend, Dr. Ireland, Marge, sorry. I'll just call her Marge, so she won't care, I hope. The only thing I'll say, and I'll be brief because I love hearing what my colleagues here will say. What got you here so far is what you should continue to rely on going forward. Regardless of whatever narrative is out there that might seem to indicate that you are part of lower percentages of students who may be enrolling at our institutions, you are here for a reason. And the intelligence, the diligence, the grit, and as Dr. Snowden said, the sweat equity that got you to this point is what you should always remember to kind of keep you moving forward. College is not easy. It's not easy for anyone. And there will be times when you may doubt, not only going through the application process, but after you enroll in terms of the difficulty of it. We all have. But remember that you are extremely bright. And here's your proof, and I'll end here. I'll end here where I began. If you're here on a Saturday morning listening to us, you're really good. And you have a lot to be proud of and thankful for. And you are going to do this. And you really need to believe that. So always remember what got you here and stay with that.
I can jump in next and speak to sort of the comments that we kind of focusing on rankings, and there's a part of me that definitely thinks rankings have value and merit in some ways, but the difference in what's important to know about rankings is so take probably the most prominent one is US News and World Report. They have a predefined formula for and different things that they consider as a part of their rankings. What's important to consider is that your priorities as an individual, as a student, and as a family likely differ from how US News and World Report looks at colleges or any other ranking system. And so what's really important to consider is not just that ranking, because although that maybe could be a decent indicator, it's not going to necessarily be a good indicator for you. And so I think looking at your priorities, whether you want a large school or a small school, whether you are a student who will need financial aid in order to attend college, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, you hear from Mr. Herrera and Mr. Duffins, who work in financial aid offices, who are here to serve students who have financial need. Like, college is expensive. That's perfectly fine. Whether even things like considering, like, the major that you're interested in is something to think about when it comes to where you want to go to school and what colleges you may want to consider. Even with that, though, I would also say that the last time the Federal Department of Education released data on this, a third of college students changed their major. 10% of college students changed their major twice or more. So I would also caution with a little bit of or use a little bit of caution to say, consider major super heavily in your college search. But I guess what all this I'm trying to say is, rankings can be great, but that's one person or one organization's way of thinking about college. It's almost certainly not the way you or your family think about college or what's important to you. So thinking about those kind of priorities, and there could be hundreds of different priorities that guide your process, I think is really important as you start navigating this college search and college application process.
If I can add, Vera and Nick, I mean, they really give you really good points. I hope I could give you some good too. Really think about, how do you learn best? Do you learn truly in a big classroom or a small classroom? I remember when I first started at Rutgers, my first semester, I remember a psychology class, intro to psychology class. There were 500 other students in that class. And I was overwhelmed because I have never been around that many people trying to learn around so many people. And I struggle because that, for me, that was not what works. But because I attended a big university, and a lot of those inter classes that we all have to take tend to be with large group of students, I did much better in smaller classrooms where I had the opportunity to ask questions. I ask a lot of questions. I've always been like that. I've always been very curious, just because that's how I learn. By asking questions. So I didn't have the opportunity to do that when I had 500 other students asking questions in a large classroom. But that might work for some of you. You might want to be on a campus that had that many students in classrooms, because that works for you. Just consider that when you're applying to colleges. Just how do you learn best? And in a big setting or a smaller setting, because that makes a difference. A big college experience, a large school is not for everybody. A small school is not for everybody. So one thing that you should consider is applying to a diverse number of schools where you're doing this. And you're looking at things from classroom sizes, but what financial aid packages they offer, what research opportunities they have, what partnerships with community organizations each school has. Just think about what's important to you, how you learn best, and how do you make the college experience best for you. Not what your friends are doing, but what works for you. And there are plenty of schools out there that can offer you a variety of skills and exposure. You just have to be smart of how you apply to them and what truly do what works best for you. That's hopefully something that you can take.
Thank you. We do have a question. As a junior high school student, what can I do to better my college process and search? How do I know if I'm doing enough?
So a couple things here. So how do you know you're doing enough? As long as you're doing something. I learned a quote that says, "The tragedy lies not in reaching your goal. The tragedy lies in having no goals to reach for. Not failure, but low aim is sin." And part of understanding that as a college student, from the words of Dr. Mays, which is one of the biggest individuals in terms of history for Morehouse College, and how he instilled these value points, is that the work that you do, and as long as you're doing something to get to your goal, it's just enough. It's just enough. Sometimes, you can look at the habits, the skill sets of making sure that you're studying. My colleagues talked about where to study maybe, or what you should be doing. The question really becomes, how are you defining those time moments, right? Balancing your time on the college arena is probably the hardest piece in terms of understanding and going through the college experience. If you can balance your time well and know when you should go to the party and when you should not, when you should be studying and when you should not, and not look for somebody to tell you when, you know, when your tutoring services are and you go to those and you make sure you're, it's about the habits that you had going into this, but then it's also about creating new habits. Because when you get to our colleges, there's a lot of social dynamic. There's a lot of social life, and you really want to be focused, So for me, it was don't change who you are just because you're going to a bigger school. Dr. Snow talked about the name brand experience. The habits that you do and the things that you do are really going to make you really, really great. So whether you're a junior, you want to focus in, you're almost done. 4.0, right? 3.5, what have you. In that last term, that last semester, and start looking at the colleges you want to go to, start visiting. Some of them might, due to COVID, you might not be able to visit. Well, normally, in most cases, they have at least virtual sessions. Speak and sit down with one-on-one counselors, right? I love how we have two of my colleagues are in the financial aid realm. Go into that and really have that moment where you can just find yourself cultivating that experience and being around financial aid representatives early. Talk to them early. There's nothing wrong with picking up the phone and calling. I know we're at a text message, past millennial stage, but call and talk to us. We are a resource for you. And sometimes it doesn't mean you have to come to our college. We really want to help you be great. And so that's my little 2 cents in that.
One thing that I would add also is the college process can be disappointing. You can do enough and still not be admitted to the college that you want to go to. And I always talk about that as being a redirection. Don't talk about I was denied or I was rejected from a college. I was redirected to another opportunity and another experience. And thanks to Mr. Duffins, who put a quote in the chat from Benjamin Mays too. So I think we'll move on to our second query. As admissions officers and financial officers, it can be a really challenging experience. And Dr. Snowden talked about the first time that he had to deny a student and what that felt like. But students and families are often focused on presenting the perfect application, the right courses, the right leadership roles, the right sport, etc. Dr. Snowden lifted up 3 components of how he views his role as an admissions officer. First, all students are privy to his knowledge. Second, compassion. And third, purpose. Please discuss what guides you and your institution as you do work that will change the world.
If I could add to those, empathy, I think this is something that we truly want to, as an institution and as a financial aid administrator, we want to take into consideration everything that a family is going through. We really want to hear from the students. We want to hear from their families. We want to know what their circumstances are. We're not looking for a perfect application. We want to just get to know you and get to know what you have to bring to our institution, to our students, because that's more important to us. Yes, you want to focus like, oh, this application must be great, but we also want to hear about the areas where you have some challenges, because that's how we're best going to be able to support you. We want to know everything. I mean, not everything, but you know what I mean. We want to know like the things that you think that we should know about you, the challenges that you experience, because that really guides us to know how we're going to support you once you're on campus. We don't want to just get you on campus. we want to be able to support you so you can stay. And retention is very important to all of us. We want you to start your degree, but we also want you to finish your degree. And unfortunately, it could be challenging. There are a lot of things that could happen along the way, and we need to know if what's going on so we can better help you. One process that financial aid offices we call it a reevaluation or professional judgment. Your financial situation might look a certain way when you first started, but a lot could happen in the next 4 years, and we need to know what those situations are so we can better support you. Recently, I have been working with a student whose father had cancer battle cancer for many years, and the family was piling up debt because of all the medical expenses. So how do we support the student, knowing that the family has a lot of medical expenses? How do we support the students so they can continue to support their the college experience? And unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago, the student's mother passed away. So now within the last, and father passed away over the summer. So in the last 6 months, the student lost both parents. We needed to be there for the student and know how can we continue to support you as an institution, and not just financially, but also what resources that go beyond finances the student needs, because it's a senior student who's going through a lot. And one thing that Penn does really well is the offices, we communicate really well, all the different offices that support students, because we know what all the resources students will need. And I think a lot of schools do that as well. And just know that we want to know your life, your situation, not just what's perfect, but what the challenges are, so we can better support you.
One thing I think that Eric mentioned that I want to kind of highlight, at least from an admissions perspective too, because I think Eric's got the great perspective of being financial aid and sort of serving students when they're currently on campus. In the admission process and sort of kind of the work that we do at Maryland, a big thing that we consistently talk about as we read applications and learn about students is the term or the concept of context. I think, like Eric said, we want to learn about you. We want to learn everything that we can, because it's our job. If you really boil down the admissions job, it's to really create a freshman class that best serves and contributes to our respective universities. And so a lot of this background information, I think, is really important. And it can be simple context that may be as simple as, like how many AP courses or IB courses your school offers. There's a growing movement, especially among independent schools in the Washington, D.C. area, that they're stepping away from AP courses and not offering courses with the label of advanced placement for a variety of different reasons. I kind of use this as an example because when we read an application, we want to learn about what kind of courses you've taken and how you've challenged yourself academically within the context of your academic environment. And so for a student who attends a school that doesn't offer AP courses, I can't expect that student to take AP courses, or I can't expect that student to take 3 or 4 AP courses per year, just because it's just not a part of that environment or in that student's environment. And context can extend outside of the classroom too. The big thing I've talked about this year, working with current seniors who are going through the application process now, is we heard so much just, with the disruptions of COVID-19, that students were taking care of younger siblings while parents maybe were working, or taking care of older family members who maybe either were already living in the home or had to move into their home due to the pandemic. And these are time commitments. These are things that take up students' lives. And that's important for us to know, because we want to know how you're spending your free time, whether it's by choice or by obligation and commitment. So it's these kind of contextual pieces that really help us get to know who you are. And that really kind of drives our admission process to help us learn who are the students that we want to join our community and be part of our community.
So a couple of things, man. So when you talk about first generation, I think one of the hardest pieces of that is what are the resources, as it's been mentioned. And I think the college university has a responsibility, right? That at some point, the parents literally take their hands off of a child, or a guardian takes your hand off of a child. And now the college or the institution says, hey, you're an adult, but there's this middle ground here. So we're here to serve you. We're here to help you. And I think whether you look at that on the admissions end, or you look at that through the tenure, we're responsible, right? And so part of that means that on the front end, we have to be responsible, right? As Nick has mentioned. So when we talk about accepting a student or looking at their background, I hope students tell us the honest truth, right? We're looking for honesty. And we're looking for a narrative. Your application should speak to all of you. And it should tell a story. It should literally tell a story. So from your essay to how the letters of recommendation, to your personal statements, to your resume, if you decide to, put that information in there. Morehouse itself has gone test optional, as probably so many other institutions, for the year of 2022. And that could look at, a student as that might not have had an academic scholarship, now might have one, right? If we're really honest with ourselves. And even how we go through our various rubrics to evaluate a student, it's really important that in this application process that you stand out. And so I think Nick hit a lot of points here, but one of the things I want to make mention is that you stick out in your application. So something that makes you stick out could be your first generation. We want to know that. Could be that your legacy. We want to know that. It could be that you might have been the SGA president, but you took care of a sibling. We want to know that. And so document all those pieces so that then we can see one focused story in which your essay carves out who you are. And so stick out, bring all the pieces that make you who you are. Don't just talk about community service, talk about what you actually did during that community service hours, the time you spent. Really, really dig into the application process and take it serious. Know the deadlines, know when to apply, and take it serious. So that would be my only piece to that.
I'll be brief, Ms. Robinson. So it looks like Dr. Ireland asked us to speak specifically to resources for first generation students on our campus, and how do you actually know how to do this? I will say this, as we all know, college costs money. I mean, college education is expensive, and it's expensive for a lot of reasons. Probably not known a lot is that sometimes the cost of educating a student actually exceeds the cost that a college will actually charge you. And this is good news for you, because this means that institutions and not only the ones that are here, but all the ones here are included, but all the ones you're going to talk to today, and frankly, all the ones that you will explore, are designed in such a way to have support systems to take care of students. One thing that I did not realize going into this process, and that is, I think, extremely important for students, and specifically first generation students, is that the college is as invested in your success as you are. And there are people on campus who are there to assist you. And that does cost money, to be blunt. And these support systems are there. I would, if I were you, before you go through the process, or as you go through, and certainly after you have your decision letters in front of you and you're trying to make up your mind, look at the dean's office of an institution, the dean of students or student affairs. Specifically, go to the website, look at all the number of professional colleagues, look at their backgrounds and what they do and what they support. And I think you will find yourself in there, either for concerns that you have right now or concerns that you feel that you may have. And understand that these folks are not there just to come in every day and then go home. They're there to help you. My colleagues in the dean's office over the past 25 years have been some of the most exceptional people that I've ever worked with. They are heavily engaged in student success. They are very, very interested in you. They will get to know you personally, and they will help you get to those next peaks as you rise through this process. So those systems are there, and they are there with great intent, and they are there to help you. And so I think the biggest thing and challenge that I see for students is actually getting past that very human hurdle of actually reaching out for help when you need it. And you should know that just because you are at, the college of your choice, okay, that institution is vested in your success and understands that from time to time, you're going to need some help and guidance along the way, and reach out, because that's what it's there for.
Thank you all so much for your commentary. I'd like to give each one of you an opportunity to add in any closing remarks or something additional that you wish that you had said, and then we'll close the program.
I'll go. So I always have a quote in the back of my head. And it's because of the things that I've been through and things of that nature. One of the quotes I also studied really at Morehouse was not only this idea of high expectations when you come into college, but then also when you're in college, what does it mean to struggle? And so one of the things that I learned from Frederick Douglass, his words are on the outskirts of one of the buildings in the student center. And it says, without struggle, there is no progress. And so when I think about struggle and I think about the things that I've been through in my personal life, to some of the things that you might be going through in your personal life that we don't know, that the colleges don't know yet, but we're going to find out hopefully, that you would then be able to really see that your struggle can make room for you. And that as you talk more about the things that you've gone through and you really begin to express yourself, you come into knowing who you are. And so one of the things I want you all to do as a student that's navigating this crazy process, I tell you, is to struggle and to really go through it, to find out who you are early, so that then you can literally define yourself. And so once you define yourself, you could come to Morehouse and then redefine the world. So I leave that with you. Thank you, for this opportunity. It's been a pleasure to be in front of you all.
I'll go next, and I'm not nearly as eloquent or as good with quotes as Mr. Gum is, but what I want to kind of leave you with, or what I hope you've sort of taken away from our time together this morning, is that I think so much is made of the college search process, in that it is, there's, I think, so much stress and anxiety born out of it. What I hope we've done instead is shown you that, this can in fact be a fun and exciting time in your life. And this is a really great time, and kind of like Mr. Gum said, to kind of build yourself and build your story and determine your path forward. It's one of the biggest decisions you will likely have made as young adults in this world, but it's an incredibly exciting time to do it. And it's an incredibly formative process as well. And so I hope you're able to see the benefits and the excitement and the positivity that comes out of this. I know I have a link to our mailing list. Mr. Duffman's also shared the link to Swarthmore. So please feel free to join our mailing list if you guys have more interest in our universities, but I'll hand it off to whoever's next.
I just want to say, just stay engaged, honestly, throughout the entire process. I'll keep it to financial aid. I'd always, most of the time, I start all my financial aid presentations saying, financial aid is not going to be the most exciting part of the college experience. Absolutely not. I could talk about financial aid all day long. It's my thing, but it's not everyone's thing, and that's okay. However, it's an extremely important part of the college experience, because you might not be able to take advantage of all the great opportunities you get at the institution if your financial situation, it's not what it needs to be. Just stay engaged with the financial aid offices. Just start the financial aid process. early all the time. Start early on, just because it could be extensive. It could go, we can request a bunch of documentation from you, determine what your financial aid application is, and then down the road, you might be selected for a process called federal verification, and we might request additional documentation from you. And if you don't submit that documentation to the offices, you might lose a lot of the financial aid. We don't want that to happen. And we might reach out to you over and over and over. And sometimes we reach out to you way too many times. And you might still say, you know what, I'm not gonna deal with this. This is not what I'm in college for. Yes, you're not in college to focus on financial aid the whole time, but it's a big part of it. So just when you hear from the financial aid officers, just stay on top of that. We can make the process. It's not a fun process, but we're always trying to find ways to make it fun, or at least to make it easier on you, because that's our goal. We don't want you to come on campus and still worrying, how am I going to pay for college? We want you to start the process early on, so by the time you arrive in college, you can focus on all the amazing social life that every institution has to offer, and your courses, and you don't have to worry about, how am I paying for this? You already took care of that, because our offices, the financial aid office, will be there for you early on to let you know what the process looks like. Go and visit every financial aid website that you could find. Every school has really good information on the website, great resources that will help you get prepared for this, because you have to go through the financial aid process every single year that you want to receive financial aid. So it's not a one-time thing and you're over. It's every single year, but we want to make the process for you as easier as possible. But you got to stay engaged. You have to stay engaged. Your families need to be engaged in the financial aid processing. Get it over with, and then go enjoy college and everything that it has to offer.
I loved everything that Michael and Nick and Eric said. Everything that I was planning to say about financial aid, Eric just said it. So thank you, Eric. So I really don't have much to say about the financial aid process, but I want to triple underscore what he said, especially two things. One, financial aid and completing the financial aid process is not nearly as bad as you will hear that it is. And number two, it is not a fun process, but it is certainly doable. And the most important thing, get it out of the way so that you can enjoy your experience and learn. That is most important. My messages, I guess, that I would pass on, particularly to students if you are first generation. You have an opportunity in front of that every single person on this panel would love to go back and have again, I'm sure. You have an opportunity to change generations of your family from this point forward by going to college. As you think about some of the challenges that are ahead of you in the next year and the next 4 years, think not just of yourself, but think of your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and what they will think of how you pioneered your way through this into a college education and literally changing your generation, your family for generations to come. So thank you for allowing us to be here. Really appreciated the opportunity.
Thank you to our panelists, and thank you all for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the day.